record. There we go. Oh, hearing all sorts of little noises. Welcome everyone. This is Joel. I'm introducing our topic for today. This is going to be on facilities and events. We're going to be focusing today on inventory management. And if you joined us a few weeks ago, this is a continuation of what we covered. Oh goodness, was it in January? I think it was in January. We did cover a section of facilities and events just on reservations, and this one is a look just at inventory. There's so much in facilities and events to cover in 1 hour that we decided to split it out. So we're very excited that you are joining us live, and if you're not joining us live, we're glad that you're viewing the recording. As usual, I'm not here by myself. You probably heard her voice in the background a second ago. That was Paige. And we are both going to be presenting different aspects of the inventory system in facilities and events. So say hello, Paige.
Hello, Paige.
And we are, again, very excited to be sharing facilities and events with you, and especially this inventory setting. And like our pictures show, we hope you will be our Valentines. So if you have questions as we're going, like as I'm talking, Paige can answer questions, and then as Paige is sharing, I can be answering questions. Try to stay on the topic, especially staying within facilities and events specific to inventory. Post those in the Q&A section of the little window that pops up for Zoom, and we will answer those questions, or we'll try to answer all those questions as we are going. You can post questions, you can post comments, you can answer if you want to be our Valentines, you can give us compliments in the Q&A. It's our way to interact with you, and we're, like I said, we're very excited that you are joining us. Just some quick reminders. Again, we kind of changed software, so there's been some changes to how follow-up is delivered. All of our webinars are recorded. The link to the recorded webinar will be sent to you the day after, so you'll receive it tomorrow. It used to be it would come like within the same day. Now it's the following day it is sent out. And then all of our archived webinars are still available. They're in our help section, in the section training and webinars, and it's divided out by each application and how to access those videos. So those are freely available for you to access. You don't have to pay for them. You can just click and watch them. And we have some upcoming events we're very excited about. We have in March in San Angelo, we're going to be at the ESC 15 event. That is with our ESC partners, and that's where we are shaking things up, as it's called. And it's a great event for you to go to and to not just learn about our products, but network with others about using the products, and also learning more about features that we have, not just from us, but also through our ESC partners and also other districts as well. So it's a great event. They're free, and you can register on our website or by going to the Service Center event. We also we're very excited. We had a roadshow last year, and if you want to access our roadshow schedule, we have an upcoming roadshow event coming up in the El Paso area at ESC 19. That will be April 6th and 7th. And I believe, maybe Paige can answer, we have tickets, like you register.
The registration is not open right now, but it will be soon. And this is actually a reschedule. It was supposed to happen in the fall with our other roadshow events, but got rescheduled for the spring. So this is our final one of the first round. And then we have this one and two coming up in the summer that will be posted. If you go to that QR code or training@eduphoria.net, you'll find more information about the roadshow events, and then when registration goes live, it will be there on that page as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Paige. So again, that's our upcoming roadshows. Those are more in-depth training And so we are very, very excited to offer that to you and to reschedule one that we missed before for El Paso. All right, so here's what we're going to cover today. We are, of course, covering facilities and events, specifically on inventory. I think both Paige and I have quite a bit of experience when we worked in districts managing facilities and events and also doing an inventory. And it's such a joy creating inventories, isn't it, Paige? No, I'm being kind of sarcastic there.
Everybody's favorite job.
Yeah, I was a tech director at one point, and part of my job was to inventory all the technology that was available in the campus and to run those reports about when was stuff purchased, what was the refresh cycle on different things. And the best way for me to do it was to literally go room by room and write everything down about what was available and then put it into some type of spreadsheet. So having access to an inventory in facilities and events was a lot more helpful because not only could I put all the information in room by room, but not only would I be able to run reports, but I could let my principals run their own reports so they could determine that refresh cycle, especially for computers and laptops and things that expire within a certain amount of time. So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to look at roles and rights in facilities and events. That's an important part of putting together the inventory. We're going to talk about different words, terminology, phrases that are important in setting up your inventory system. And then we're going to talk about just tracking inventory and those various reporting tools. So we're going to get started right away. I'm going to be showing some slides first, and then we're going to jump into the software after Paige delivers her part. But I wanted to point out that, again, you want to look at what roles are available inside of facilities and events. And the system administrator role is the role that has the access to manage the whole system. Specific to inventory, there is this inventory manager role that can be assigned to users. And that means that whoever you assign that role, they may not need the full system administrator to manage the whole system. An inventory manager would be someone that you're selecting who would be just managing the inventory, the actual items that you're putting in the inventory system. And it's not necessarily a reservation person, it's just someone who's going to be maintaining that inventory for the district or for the specific campus that you have.
Can I throw one thing out there?
Yeah, go ahead.
We recommend keeping the system administrator role in all of the apps to a very small number. You don't want to have just one because you want to make sure you've got a backup person, but you don't want to have a lot of people with that top role just because it opens you up to the possibility of mistakes. But that inventory manager role gives you the ability to say, okay, this person is going to manage the inventory in the technology department. This person is going to manage the inventory in the transportation department, but they don't need to be able to control everything in F&E. So it's a good compromise role.
Right. Thank you for adding that. Yes. And that's an experience you'll have too. If too many people have that access, it may cause trouble down the line. So inventory manager is a role that you can assign someone that you want just them to manage the inventory instead of the entire system. Also, there are specific rights inside of facilities and events that are tied to the management. If you assign the role of the inventory manager, they're going to receive these rights, which is the ability to print barcodes, delete assets. So that these are inherent to the system. It just gives you more control to give them specific access to what they may need. And it's separate from what they would have if they're the reservation manager or the reservation administrator for what they're doing. So it's going to just limit within the inventory rights to what they would need access to in that system. So it's roles, and then it's the rights that you want to assign to someone who is going to be managing inventory. So let's talk about some of the wording, the terminology, because that's something that is popping up now inside the roles in the rights. And so within the terms and Paige, I can't remember, are you doing this part?
No, well, I
Okay.
can, but I thought I was taking over at slide 14.
Okay. I'm just making sure. I don't want to be stepping over. So
Maybe 11,
rooms,
I don't know.
yeah, rooms are basically containers for items that you're going to be putting into the system. And like I like to use the term rooms if it's a space inside of a campus or a facility. And a room doesn't have to be a physical space. It could be like a cart. A cart is a container for assets. So if you have, we used to call them the Chromebook carts or the laptop carts, or gosh, back in my day, the Palm Pilot cart. That was a container for assets or a grouped set of assets. So rooms don't have to be a physical room. They could be something that is containing other items. I've seen districts where they're not just doing a technology inventory, they may have a book room where the book room itself is a campus, and then the individual shelves are a room because the room contains the books on that particular shelf. I mean, you can detail it as much as you want. Just think of rooms as a container. And there's different room types, like I was saying. So when you're creating, and we'll show this in the inventory system, when you're creating your room types, you want to keep it a very generic, very broad description for a room. So like a room type would be the classroom or the science lab or like I said, the book room. It's not a specific room with a room number attached to it. It would be common rooms that you would find across multiple campuses or within one building.
Joel, I just lost your sound. I'm not hearing you anymore.
Uh-oh. Yeah,
Oh,
I just got a I'm unstable
oh,
message.
well, we've known that for a while.
Is it back?
Yeah, you're back now.
I'm trying to wave my hands. Maybe that'll help.
Okay.
Um, so if you didn't hear that last part, room types, very generic category. You want to look at room types that might be spread across multiple campuses or spread across multiple levels within the same building. But it's a very generic category. And then assets are the actual items, the individual items that are inventoried, that are tracked in the system. And these would be like your computers, your books, your projectors, document cameras, specific items that you want to track data about within a container to run those types of reports. And then the last one is categories, and that is just creating the specific type of grouped assets. So instead of being a Mitsubishi projector, a category would just be projector. It's a greater category of information about that asset type. Are you still able to hear me, Paige?
I'm hearing you.
Okay. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, because I think I'm taking over on the next slide, and I'll be talking about some of these items a little bit more.
Okay. Do you want me to hand you the controls too?
I just clicked share, but it wouldn't let me. So I think, yes, you have
Okay.
to hand me the controls.
I think I have to share it.
Thank you.
So I'm going to stop share.
Okay.
And then
And
you're
I'm going
going
to
to share.
start share.
We are so good at this.
Okay, and
There
now
you go. I
hopefully you're
see you.
seeing my screen. Woohoo! Okay, so once you get into facilities and events, and Joel's been talking in some broader categories, what are assets, what are asset categories, asset classes, rooms, those are the terms that are sort of larger. But when you get in there, it's going to ask you about regular assets, simple assets, and grouped assets. So we're going to talk about what those could be and how you might want to use those as you go through. A regular asset is something that is not a tiny little thing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. What am I trying to think of? The word they use for if it's $500 or more. Doesn't have to be a specific price range. It's just a substantial piece of equipment that you're going to want to track. Some examples would be laptops or printers or projectors. Simple assets are usually more common things that you don't have as many features to deal with on a simple asset. And then grouped assets are going to be those clusters of things, and Joel talked about that a little bit. You'll see these three things listed when you go to create assets in the program, and we'll look at some examples of what those assets might look like. So there we go. So when we're talking about asset categories and classes, this is how they're grouped. So here on the left, you'll have your type of asset, whether it's a simple asset, a regular asset, or a grouped asset. It will be one of the top level items. And then within that asset, you can have categories. So of simple assets, I can have multiple categories of simple assets. Of regular assets, I could have multiple categories. And then within each category, you would have multiple classes. So this is using just the generic terms over here, and it would be assets, whether they be regular, simple, or grouped, and the categories and classes that belong. And then on the right-hand side, I've tried to give it a more specific example. So I took my regular asset section, and I have regular assets for technology, I have regular assets for fine arts, and for transportation. Those are the three categories that I have here. And then within each of those categories, there are different classes. So within technology, I have laptops, projectors, and printers, which is what we saw on that previous screen. Under fine arts, I have instruments and uniforms and performance furniture. Um, and then under transportation, and I would say performance furniture would be something like risers or anything that they need, to set up to perform. And then under transportation, my classes are buses, trucks, and vans. So none of those classes, laptops, that's not a specific item, that's not a specific asset, that is a class of assets. Projectors are not a specific thing, they're a class of things, because I could have 4 or 5 different brands of projectors, and the same for printers. So we haven't even gotten down to the specific assets yet. We're at the class level, and then the category level, and then one of those 3 types of assets: regular, simple, or grouped. So hopefully that kind of helps you to understand how things are broken down and how you can group them within the system. And that way you could have different people managing the technology category inventory from whoever's managing the fine arts category inventory, or who's managing the transportation category inventory. And you could give those the inventory manager roles. Any questions about the differences between asset categories and classes?
No questions yet. I just like the idea of handing off the responsibility of inventory to different managers,
Absolutely.
because there's so much that
There is so much. And
could be inventoried in a school.
absolutely. So when you do, and I said, from the previous slide, we haven't even gotten to the asset level. We're just looking at the categories and classes. But when you do get to the asset level, you can add in a ton of information about each individual asset. There's a general section where you can put in, what are you calling the thing? Who makes it? What model is it? Does it have a barcode from your district? Does it have a serial number? Do you want to write a description? And you can even take a picture of the item and put the photograph up there so that it's clear exactly what you're talking about. There is also a finance area where you can go in and put the budget code that was used to purchase this asset, purchase order number, the cost, how much is estimated to be the replacement cost, and when would be the purchase date and the replacement date. So if you're like on a 3-year replacement cycle, I'd put my purchase date in there, and then I would go 3 years out and put my replacement date so that I could run a report and say what is up for replacement at this particular time. So some of those things that you have to manage with inventory, you can if you put all the information in on the assets as you build your inventory. There's also a way for you to create additional properties. So you could put in the operating system or the wireless capability or the IP address or storage space or whatever it is that you want to keep track of on that asset. You can generate any additional properties that you need. You can also set up reservations and assignments. So if you attended our previous session on facilities and events with room reservations, all of the things that we did or showed you how to do in room reservations apply to assets as well. So you could go in and set up an asset manager, give rights to reserve, set up a workflow, all of those things that you can do with rooms, you can do with assets as well. They're treated the same way. Rooms are just a container, and the asset is something that is in that container. You also have a journal that you can put on your assets, so you could make notes and you can attach things. And that journal and some of the other data also ties into help desk. So if you're using help desk, then if any help desk tickets related to this asset can be viewed both from the help desk side and the facilities and events side. And you can see the details, you can see the parts. Help desk can see the journal. So if I took a picture of the broken screen and attached it in the journal, then the help desk technician would be able to see that picture that I took and attached. So all of that works together to give you all the information that you need about those assets once they're in your, logged in your system. Okay, so let's talk about room types and how you might want to use room types in terms of setting up your assets. So I have some examples, some screenshots, and we looked at this last time where you go in and you set up your room types, and I've got classroom in here and auditorium and library. Those are those big generic types of rooms that you might have. But I've also set up two different rooms. One is called Chromebook Cart, and one is called technology checkout items. And I set those up specifically so that I could show you two different ways to do those grouped assets. And a grouped asset is a collection. So like a Chromebook cart could be a grouped asset because you put the things together in one cart and you check them out together. So I could consider that a grouped asset. Or I could set it up as a room like I've done in this top example, and I'll show you what both of those look like, so that I'm actually using Chromebook Cart as the container that I'm putting all my Chromebooks in. So this top example that's called Chromebook Cart is a room as a container with individual Chromebooks in it. This bottom item, I'm going to set up grouped assets inside there. And then when I go into my building, I would create a room for checkout technology, and that room type would be this technology checkout items. Vehicle checkout would be a room. It wouldn't be technology checkout items, it would be the transportation items. And then my Chromebook cart is the room that's going to be this room type up here. So Chromebook cart number 3 is an actual room number because it has number 3 on it, and it's of this type, Chromebook cart. I could have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, however many I've got. I could have all of those numbers there. So once I have the room set up or the room types set up, what would I do next? I'm going to go into the actual software and show you from here. Open, open, open. Okay. So if I go into make a reservation, I have set this up in both ways so that you could see the difference. So if I set them up as grouped assets, I would use that technology checkout items as my room type. I would make a room called checked out items, and then I would put all of my grouped assets in there. So when I go to make a reservation, it's going to show up here under technology items, and I can click and say, I want to reserve a Chromebook cart. That's a room. Or I want to come down here and say, this is what I'm going to reserve, my technology items. And I'll say next. And I want my date. I'll just say, this is on Valentine's Day. And then it's going to show me the carts that I have available to reserve. So in that one place, laptops, I have 2 carts. I could also have a laptop cart, or I could have any number of grouped items that are available for checkout. And all I have to do to say I want it is click on that one and put in my information, and I can reserve that asset. And it is, I reserved one thing. I took Chromebook cart number 1, and it showed up. I think the important difference is that it shows up when I go to make reservations. Oops, done the wrong When I go to make reservations, it shows up not as a room up here, but as a technology item. So if I'm going to group my assets, that's where it would show up. I normally wouldn't do it this way where I have both a Chromebook cart down here and a Chromebook cart in the room. I would choose one or the other. But I set it up this way just so that I could show you the difference. Again, this down here under technology items is where I have grouped assets. Up here, if I say I want to go to this Chromebook cart up here, I'm actually reserving a room. And so again, for the end user, it's going to look the same. I'm observing the Chromebook cart room. And then I would have, normally, if I had more than one, they would show up. But, well, I'll show you where they show up. Hang on just a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. Need to go ahead and do my clicks. So here's where they would show up as individual carts. I had the room type was Chromebooks. The actual room name is Chromebook cart number 3. So I'm saying I want to reserve that room. I'll go in and reserve that room. And again, test 2, oops. Do the reservation, it looks pretty much the same, but one of them I reserved, the top one, when I reserved cart number 1, that was a grouped asset. When I reserved cart number 3, that was a room. For the end user, again, the difference is, does it show up here as a room? This is a room type that I want to reserve, or does it show up down here as a technology item I want to reserve? Either way is trainable, so you have to decide what's going to work best for you. On the back end, under management, I lied, under inventory, I'm going to go in and look at those rooms. So if I go to checkout technology, this is where the grouped assets are. So Chromebook cart number 1 is a grouped asset. When I look at all the details, I have a place for a serial number, but I have one place for a serial number and I have 25 Chromebooks on this cart. So if I wanted to list every serial number of every Chromebook that's in this group asset, I either need to do that comma separated here in the description, or I can go over to my journal and I can attach a spreadsheet that has all of that in there. But I don't have a place within the system for it treats it as one item. So I might have one barcode from the district that's for that whole Chromebook cart, even though each Chromebook has its own serial number. So I'd put the cart barcode here, and then I would go into journal entry and I would upload my spreadsheet of serial numbers or other details about that Chromebook cart. So that's what it looks like when you're managing a grouped asset. It only has one basic information place. So that's one barcode or one serial number. The other option, when I set it up as a room, I would set up a separate room for each cart. So here under the checked out technology, I have 2 carts in one room because they're separate grouped assets and I can do that. But if I'm going to set them up as rooms, I would have a separate room. So I would have Chromebook cart number 1, number 2, number 3 as all individual rooms. But when I go into that room, I can see each Chromebook number, its individual number, and I could go in and say I wanted to see more information. I could go to the advanced tab, and it's going to show me a different view. That's not what I wanted to do. I can see all of the information, or I could go in and look at one of those items individually. So now I'm seeing just Chromebook number 51, and I can see its serial number, so I can see them individually. If I had to delete one of these and add a new replacement item to this Chromebook cart, I could do that because they're individual items within the room rather than a grouped asset. So for the teacher's side or the checkout side, it doesn't, the only difference is whether it shows up in the room section or the technology section. But on the management side, if you want to be able to access each one of those items individually, I would recommend doing it as a room. There are some things that are going to come together and leave together no matter what. They could be grouped assets. But if I might have to replace a Chromebook or I might have to send one off, I would probably want to be able to see that serial number separately and manage them individually. Any questions about that?
No questions on that.
All right. So when you're creating your assets, you're going to go to the Manage tab, and you're going to, under Asset Management, say you want to create your categories. And those categories are all of the things that you might clump together in one area. So I need to get to my classes. Okay, I'm going to show this live because I don't like the categories that are on my screenshot. So when you go into Manage and you say that you want to set up your asset classes, I'm sorry, your asset categories, those are the big groups. These are the groups that you're going to put things under. So I have furniture items, which is probably going to be mostly simple assets. I have transportation items. I have technology items. From my little chart earlier, I should also have an asset category for fine arts because that's something that I can manage here. These are going to be departments or big clumps of things that you're going to bundle together. So I would, like everything else, go to the bottom and say I want to create a new asset category, and I would just call it fine arts. And then I would save that. I can go in and edit the icon. If there was like a musical instrument or something that I could see really quickly, I would grab it, but I don't know that there is. Medical tools, people. I don't know. So I'm going to leave it at, they'll get a gold star. So you can change your icons, but those are going to be the large categories. Maybe departments, may be not officially departments, but what are the groups that are going to have their own inventory? That's what I would set up as my categories. And then classes are going to be individual types of things within that group. So I'm going to go to my asset classes, and I can see if I go to technology, I have laptops, radios, projectors, computers, printers, VCR, television, video camera. These are all types of technology items. So technology item is my category. These are all the types of items, and then I would have individual assets underneath these different classes. If I look at my classes for transportation, I have trucks, buses, cars, or vans. Those are my 3 different chunks. That's how I'm going to divide up all of my transportation items. And then furniture could be, well, I don't have any in there, but it could be desks, file cabinets, whatever you have in the classroom that's not technology items. So again, the categories are the big department or large groups that have a separate inventory. And within that inventory, I'm going to break it down into descriptive items, what describes the kinds of items I have. And then below that, I will have the individual assets or the items themselves. Okay, so I talked about classes and categories. When you get into classes, you can also check off some things down here that you want to be able to track about those classes. So for all of my projectors, I want to track the lamp hours, what kind of cables they have, what the manufacturer is, so I can check off all those items in as things that I want to track on those classes. And then I can also hit the arrow going the wrong way. I can also go in and create my own custom properties. So for any of my assets, I can set up a specific thing that I want to track. And barcode's already in there. You need to make sure you look at what's there and don't duplicate that. But you can create your own custom properties, make it searchable, and then monitor that information as you go through the process. Any questions about setting up, getting your classes, your categories ready to put those actual assets in there?
I have not seen or heard a question.
Awesome. Then that means it's time for me to stop sharing because Joel is going to dive into the software with you.
That's right. So I'm going to click on this. Let me make sure I'm going. Yep. There. Are y'all seeing my screen?
I see you.
I see you. Of course, I'm like way, way back. But I wanted to go into the idea of the importing tool that is available inside of facilities and events. And so this is if you have a spreadsheet already, or you want to create a spreadsheet to work from to do an all-in-one import of data. There's multiple imports that are available in the system. But the key is to use like a CSV file for creating that information. And we have all this in our help section, but what I thought I would do is kind of show you the way I kind of used it when I was in a district and was creating the import. It's always a tough thing to do an import because all your fields have to match up directly with content that is already in your system. So for example, one of the things that you can do is you can do what's called a room import. And a room import indicates that instead of going in and like I'm going to go to the inventory tab here, and instead of going to my campus and then selecting my building and adding an individual room, like I can create a room and give it a name, assign it a room number, and select the type of fields that I want to track. Instead of doing that by hand, I can actually upload a CSV of all my room information. So it's a lot easier, especially if you're used to working in a spreadsheet instead of a form where you have to enter in stuff, click next, click next, click next. So you do have the ability, if you want to add additional rooms after you do an upload, you can. But whenever you create rooms, you can see, like if I click on edit room here, I have to have like a room title versus a room number. I can select a zone. I can select what type of room it is based on, like Paige was showing earlier, creating your room types. I can set maximum seating. I can even put a barcode information in there when I'm creating the room. And then also uploading a photograph. Now, for importing, if I wanted to import this information, I would figure out what information I would need in the import itself. So for rooms, specific rooms, usually it's a pretty stripped down for what you need. You usually need to make sure you select the name of the campus. And I always suggest if you're in facilities and events, if you click on the top bar, it shows you a list of all your campuses. Another place to get this information is if you have access in the management application, you can click on your managed schools and see a list of your schools as well. The reason this is important is because facilities and events is a database. And any data that you're attaching to the database through an import has to match exactly existing fields. So when you're importing rooms and you're importing them into a specific campus, you have to use the title of the campus or the school that is listed in the management section. So let's say Indigo High School, even though in our system it's called Indigo High School, maybe the school is called James Indigo High School, and your spreadsheet is saying James Indigo High School. When you do an import and that name doesn't match, it's going to pull up all sorts of errors. So always start with the basic. What is the name of the school in the software already? Because that's going to be part of matching it to the rooms that you're going to be doing in facilities and events. So I'm going to pull up, this is a spreadsheet for a basic custom import of rooms. You can see it only has 4 columns, and the columns are, they don't have a header to them because that's part of the logistics of our facilities and events importer is when you are importing, you strip the header out. But I'll just tell you what the headers are. The first is the campus. The second is the room name. The third is the room number, and the fourth is the room type. And the reason I know this is because I have used facilities and events for like 14 years now. And I know that, but I also built the construction of this importer. And room name and room number are an important differentiation because some places may use the fire code number for a room that has a different name. I give the example of like when I would do an inventory, I would pull the fire map and I would look at it and see what the specific room numbers were versus the room title. So like my library on the campus, the title of it is library, but the fire code may have been something like F101. And so you could differentiate that information if you needed to in your upload inside the system. Now, Paige made a point with me earlier, kind of like a point counterpoint, that if you're going to be tying your inventory system to help desk, it may be a better idea to have the same room number and room name in each section. So it would be library, library, or F101, F101, to make it easier within tying those two systems together in help desk and facilities and events. But it's up
And
to you how you're setting that up.
and sort of as a compromise, I would have put library dash F101 for both.
Oh, smart.
So I'm really combining both in both, and that way, whatever they see from help desk, they'll have whatever information they need.
Right. Okay, so let me show you what I do. So whenever I go and I'm doing an import, I would do the start new import. It's a wizard. It's going to walk you through some information. And the first, it's kind of like a key. To get in, you have to upload your file first. And so I have a CSV, and in the help documentation, if you're doing this for the first time, I recommend doing this. This is kind of like a workaround. Create a blank Excel spreadsheet and just call it, just save it as a CSV file. It's just looking for a CSV file to be uploaded. You don't necessarily need information in it. It just needs to know that there's a CSV file that you're uploading. And the reason I say that is because we just want to get past this point. So I'm just going to click on upload, and it's going to take me into this very intricate, scary screen. And we realize it's a little scary, but we're going to walk you through it. So one thing that is going to happen is before I'm done here, because I put in a CSV file that I don't necessarily want to use, I can delete this kind of session I'm in when I'm done showing you this stuff, or I can do re-upload file where I can choose a different file once I have it set. But I wanted to just show you what's available inside the importer. So the importer itself, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I wish I could say that was for your benefit, but it's for my ancient eyes as well. On this screen, you're going to kind of set up your schema for what you're doing. So the first thing is, what is it that you're wanting to import? Are you doing assets, regular assets, those simple assets that Paige had talked about, or are you doing rooms? And so I'm going to just select rooms just to show you. And when I select that, some information disappeared. If I go back to regular assets, those fields are coming back. So I'm going to stick with rooms for a second here. And if I scroll down a little bit, it says click here to import assets with a specific room type. This will remove the room type column in your import schema. So this is if I want to import with my own room type, or if, let's say I'm just doing a standard group of rooms like classrooms, it just removes that column that I may have set in my schema. So this is like, if I want to do this, then I will click it, but I don't have to click it. It's just
Click on it and show them what it will do. Okay.
So it shows you the information of the room type. and it's showing the room types that you designated when you did the original setup. So you can select, I'm going to use this specific room type for what I'm importing. It's
And
usually
since he already has room type in his spreadsheet, he can click back on that, make that disappear again, and it will pull what he has from his spreadsheet.
right. So this is kind of like overriding what I have in a spreadsheet if I wanted it to override that.
Good
But
word.
if it's like, oop, I would just click that to see what was happening, you can click it again and it clears that information out. The important piece is down here. This is where you define what it is that you want to include in the import itself. So this is where, and it's, let me clear it out so you can see. It should be like a little blank area, and you click and drag over, like I'm left clicking, holding down and dragging over. This is basically defining the columns that you're going to have in your spreadsheet of what it is that you want to import. So if I was looking at the room one, for example, the first one that is important for rooms is the building, the room name, the room number. So I'm going to, let's create those. So I'm going to say, I don't really need title. I'm going to drag that back over there. The first one is campus. Then I want the room number, the room type. And you can see that's it for general. Then I have custom properties I can bring over. If you have rooms that are barcoded, you can already have the barcode as part of what you're going to import. The rest of these properties are tied to like a computer. It's not necessarily a room, so I'm probably not going to bring stuff over. There's one that's kind of important. You can do phone extension if that's something you want to go ahead and import with that room data as well. So you
Joel,
build your schema here for what it is that you want in your spreadsheet. Go ahead, Paige.
wasn't title your room name?
Oh yeah, title was my room name. I'm going to move that over. And you can see I'm dropping it between where I want, and I can move things up and down. Just click and drag as you want. And that's important because when you are building your spreadsheet, you want to make sure that what you have in the order on here matches the order of your columns on the spreadsheet. So it knows the difference between uploading phone extension as barcode based on column A needs to be campus, column B needs to be title, column C is room number, and on down. And that's how it defines the schema for what it is that you're importing into the system. Is this has to match your first, second, third, fourth for what it is that you've designed in that schema. And then once you have defined that schema, like I said, you can re-upload the file if you have your file ready. You can, like I used to do, I'd have those two monitors set up, define my schema here, make sure it matches the information I have in the spreadsheet. And then when I'm ready, I can re-upload that file and process it, which is push it through the system so that it's actually doing the import. Now here's the caution. I'm going to give you the caution. Facilities and events is a database where whatever you import into the system, it saves. It doesn't let you replace. So when you are importing files, it will only duplicate what you may have imported before. So it's really, really important that you have your import ready for what it is that you're wanting to bring into the system. Otherwise, it will import and duplicate that information into the system itself. So I always say, make sure you have it correct. The good thing is, Paige and I have a lot of experience looking at import data. And if you're ever at that point where you're just not sure, you can email your import file to us at training@eduphoria.net, and we will look over it just to help verify that for you. Because we are very well, you know how it is. We
Well,
know the system. We know
and
how organizations know how.
databases, and this is the database, are picky. So
Yes.
when you put in the campus name there as a field, it's going to look at how you named your campus in eduphoria. And so
Yeah.
if in
Has to match.
eduphoria it was Aqua Elementary School, and in your spreadsheet it just says Aqua or Aqua Elementary or AES, then that's going to
Mhm.
be a conflict. So it has to be exactly the way you wrote the name in eduphoria for them to match up. And one of the things that we find very frequently when people are having trouble with their upload is there's an extra space in there somewhere.
Yes.
And that extra
Very
space makes
common.
it see them as two separate things. So you do have to be careful with your data, but if you can get your data clean, then this upload will save you a lot of time.
Right. I worked with a district that was using uh, another inventory system, like for managing all of their textbooks and all of their resources. And they were able to go in and do an extraction of the data and then format it perfectly to match what it was they wanted to manage inside the inventory system here. And it saved them quite a bit of money for the other from the other system. And it was just exporting that data and then getting the schema to match based on what it was that they wanted to um, cover for what they're wanting to track in the inventory. And that was, like I said, that was rooms. If you go to do regular assets, when you are clicking on the information, you can see the descriptors change. There's a few more fields to select from because it's not a room. There's more information. And it's just like what Paige was introducing at the beginning, the types of things that you can track for assets are beyond um, just the location of that item. So you can track things like serial numbers, barcodes. It even has where your asset class can come over as long and the location information, but you can also track financial information, replacement dates. If you're going to be reserving that information, so one of the things is there's a mode where you can assign certain assets to students or to have a checkout system. So one of the fields that you can track would be to assign it to a local student ID. um, we've seen districts use this when they're doing a one-to-one and they're checking out Chromebooks to students. They can track the whole inventory within facilities and events. And then those custom properties that you design, you can bring those over as well to track for the items that you're pulling in. So it's just creating your schema here and then matching it to the file that you have created to pull that information into the
Okay, Joel's
inventory.
sound just went away again, and I'm
Oh,
not sure why, and I'm hoping he's going to come back in a second.
can
But
you hear
until he
me?
does, I'm going to say two things.
I'm unstable again.
Oh, yes, you are unstable again. Okay. I was going to say two things while you were gone. Do you have something to say about? Oh, you got a new spreadsheet up. Okay.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay. Well, if you'll go back to the screen that's showing, not the spreadsheet, but yeah. So I just wanted to mention two things because we've talked about how there could be some complications if the data is not, matching exactly. For one, as soon as you do an upload, as soon as you click that process button, a second tab is going to show up to the right of that general tab, and it's going to say
Mhm.
history, and it's going to show you a list of all of the uploads that you have done. Yeah, you had one before. Okay, so that's going to show you all of the uploads that you have done, and if they have a little green thing beside them, you're in good shape. All your data went through. If that little arrow is red, then you've got a problem. If you have a red, you can also go and look at the view log button, which is at the top of that window. So can you get back to where you like?
The history.
Well, there. Get back to your main screen. Like I guess start a new import. There we
Well,
go.
if you double click on it, it takes you
Oh, it'll
back.
take you to that. Okay, so if you
Yeah.
double click on the history, it takes you to the log, but you always have that up at the top where you can view, or if you're looking at the history and you double click on one. I don't know if it does it for the red one. Oh, Yeah, it should do it for red ones. When you double click, it'll tell you exactly what went wrong. So it'll show you like online, whatever, it hit a problem. And so you can go look at your spreadsheet and see, oh, on this line I had everything was off by one field and that's why it didn't line up. So it will give you some clues if you look at the history and view your log as to what went wrong.
And that's just double clicking it in that view. So when I go to import assets and I have that red, I call it a splat. When I have that red splat, if you double click it, that's where
Any
you can,
splat, it'll show you your view log.
right, it'll show you the view log, and you still have the options for re-uploading a file to the specific schema that you've designed for that particular import.
And after you process one, if you get the splat, as Joel calls it, it will go straight to that screen where you can see the history, the status and the history, and you can go in and double click on it and look at the view, the log.
Yeah, and it'll show you the last, like it does it by the upload date and the time, so you can see that information. The other check is to actually just click on the inventory tab itself and go to your campus where you know that you've done an upload. And I always just kind of would double check a room to make sure that data has uploaded and is showing up in that room.
Awesome.
Other questions?
No, we don't have any questions right now because you're doing such a great job.
I think it's because my sound keeps going up and they're like, oh, he hung up.
No, he didn't hang up on us. He would
But
never.
like we were talking about at the very beginning, one of the, like I used to use this again for managing technology items, making sure we had the correct items inside the room. And like Paige was talking about in the reservation system, when you have an inventory that you're tracking and keeping accurate, meaning hopefully someone has put their foot down and told teachers not to move computers and things out of their rooms. But whenever you have a very accurate inventory, there's some crossover to things that make it work a lot easier. We talked about, we did a webinar in the fall that was about help desk and working within connecting help desk to the inventory. And so whenever you have that set up, it creates, when you have an asset that is tied to help desk tickets, it does create like tabs of information that will connect to tickets that may have been created for help desk. And so I
And the
think
same is
about,
true of the journal. That shows in
yes,
both.
yeah, so information is shared between the two applications for tracking that info. So like one of the things that helped me as a tech director was noticing we have a certain number of desktops that were having issues. Maybe it was that group that we purchased from the manufacturer at the time. And I could actually run and get good data to be able to say, oh, these all have the common serial number coding. And maybe it was just a bad batch that we purchased. And I could pull that information because I was tracking the inventory in facilities and events matched with what we had going on in the help desk ticket. So just some
Joel,
ideas for how it can be used.
will you do me a favor and click on the
Yes.
advanced button up above Chromebook? Yeah. If you go to advanced, you
Mm-hmm.
have some additional options, and one of them over there says mass edit and mass move. So if I decided all of the Chromebooks that are currently in room 111 need to move to another room, I don't have to do that individually. I could
Right.
say I wanted to mass move them and put them somewhere else. Or if there was something I needed to change, let's say we had a set of Chromebooks that were going to a different campus now, I could use mass edit and click that drop down arrow, and you'll see I can change anything from the general title description, some financial information. I can do that in mass for all of those items at one time. So again, that's another thing that's going to make your assets easier to manage if you have them in the system.
Very
The
good.
end.
Did you say the end?
I did.
Yes. All right, let me go. Let's go to the end of our slideshow here. Make sure we covered all of our things. Sorry, like having to go quick. Goodness. there any other questions that popped up, Paige?
Not at this time. No, sir.
Well, we do want to remind everyone that it is time to start planning summer PD pretty soon. And that means if you're wanting to schedule us for training, we do offer different types. We have on-site training where we will schedule time to visit your district or your campus to do that hands-on training. We have online similar to this, but more customizable for what you would need for your school or for your district. And then we also have our online help with our training webinars and information there. And as we shared before, we have the roadshow and the upcoming ESC event. I do want to remind we have other webinars planned and scheduled. So we have one scheduled for next week for the AWARE test authoring online testing. We know it's that season. So our AWARE trainers will be showing information to help you with online testing and test authoring. Then we're going to take March 4th. Oh, that's my mom's birthday. Saying. That'll be Paige and I again will be returning, the duo, and we'll be talking about FormSpace 101, just a real basic. If you're already using FormSpace, this one is going to be just a real kind of basic overview of the capability of FormSpace. So you're welcome to join that one, but you may want to come back for the March 25th, which is a more advanced look at FormSpace. Also, Paige and I will be doing that one. There's a break between March 4th and March 25th because we know several districts are on spring break during that time, so we're not planning on any webinars when y'all are on vacation. We hope that you enjoy your spring breaks without needing to come visit us for a webinar. But you can access our webinars. It's in our help section, or you can go to tinyurl.com/eduphoria-webinars. All right, everyone. Oh, it is time for us to go. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for staying with us during our technical glitches. Have a great week.
And a happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Be our Valentines.
See you next time.
Bye.